The Burton locations growth community on Wednesday night. So one of my favorite things, as you guys know, we'll be jumping live in the next 2 minutes. I think it's like a 90-second delay. So again, feel free to share this. And you who are joining us online, please let us know you're there, but share. So we have, I think my wife hopefully is commentating, but I'll be on the chat as well. So it's really funny. I actually have Pastor Noble, which it feels really weird to call him that, but my buddy, I'm watching Holly's live right now, and I kind of want to mess with him, but I don't. But it is a really cool thing for us to, we've been talking about, really, how much the last year has, kind of caused us to have to, relearn some things about ministry and, just do things that we wouldn't necessarily think, hey, this is what we want to do or this is what we ought to do, but, I was kind of back and forth. I was like, yeah, I like the idea of doing a Facebook Live. Hey, Demetrius. I like the idea of doing something where we can interact. I didn't think it would be that much fun. So I've massively enjoyed, honestly, just jumping on and being able to share time with you. But if you got the River Church app, and I know if you're on your phone, this will make it really hard to kind of watch the live stream and follow along. But we will be in the Light of the World lesson. In the I Am book. So I've massively enjoyed this kind of series. I know having a book in your hands is typically some people's learning preference, but as always, if by chance you want a copy of the book, feel free. You can go to Amazon.com. I haven't searched it yet, but Doc pulled a fast one on me, and when he showed me this, it should have been his name first. And then the jerk put my name first, and I was like, why would you do that? Don't do that. I honestly could care less about pageantry and everything like that. But he's like, no, you're on Amazon now. You're going to be a bestseller. And I'm like, you're not funny, Doc. I fight ego as it is. But again, Joy, thanks for joining us. Mike, how's it going? Andrea Davis, glad you guys joined us. And again, as you kind of jump on, please let us know that you're here. So I got to hit the share button really, really quickly just so there we go. So Heidi's on, and we're off and running. So what do you got? Andrea Davis is one of Kim's students. Thank you for clarifying. This is the fun thing and not so much fun thing about Facebook. I don't know who knows whom. So knowing that now, cool. Now I know. That's awesome. So Andrea, it's awesome. I'm glad you're here, and the fact that you're one of Kim's students, that's awesome to hear. So yeah, Kathy and I jump on line, and we're he's gonna jump on, and I think he's gonna feel like I'm calling him out. Hey, Julie, but Scott Richards or Scott Richardson, something like that. I'm blanking if it's Richards or Richardson. The guy jumps on to the chat. The guy jumps on to the live stream for Growth Community. He jumps on the live stream on Sunday, and I'm like, I don't know him. I wish I did, and I can't find information on him. He's not in our people group, and I'm like, he always says hi. I'm glad I'm joining. Great, man. And I'm like, you're so nice. Now that she's here, I can actually say, Julie's mom. Your mom lives in California, right? So Julie's mom lives in California, and one of the most encouraging people from California I've ever had the opportunity to meet, because every single Sunday I'm tuning in. Pastor Ryan, I love that. That was great. And I'm like, that's so sweet. But every single Sunday she's watching. So I kind of told you guys even the story about my sister watching. And I'm like, it's weird because I want to make sure I focus on here, but I'm trying to learn how to focus on that as well, because we don't know where people are. So Mike Wing, yeah, Mike's just kind of out. How's it going, guys? So a couple things that we kind of got going on just to kind of wrap up so you guys know. One, we have Easter takeaways. So our Easter gathering here at Burton, we have a 9 o'clock and we have an 11 o'clock. If you want any flyers, we have them at back guest services right now. Easy way to invite, and here's kind of even a cool thing. Even if you invite somebody and they go to a different location, that's okay as well, because we want people to hear the gospel of Christ. We're not fighting interlocationally, and we're not fighting other churches. But if you would like a couple takeaways to be able to have in your car, if you got some coworkers you want to bring, we have those there. We also have our egg extravaganza egg hunt flyers as well. So this is a little bit more of a kiddie one. This is for the kids. Even I was talking to Broly today while he's not necessarily going to school, but I was talking to him. We registered him for kindergarten, and then I had the interpersonal moment where I just realized I registered my son to kindergarten. But he's like, but Dad, maybe next year I can take some egg hunt flyer things to school and invite some friends. I was like, attaboy. And it was like really cool because last year Emerson and Broly were in the same class. Both of them were walking up to kids and inviting kids. Now Emerson was way more brave than Broly was, but it was really cool. Just, I'd like you to go. And then Tony Edwards completely made it really awkward for me because I'm like getting my kid and just saying hi, inviting people. And Tony's like, yeah, that's our pastor right there. And I'm like, well, this now just got a lot more intense. Hi, you should come, and I'm going to preach about sin on Sunday. I was like, I just want to get to know you and be like, just come to church. I care about you. But it was really fun. But if you would like some of these, feel free to watch them. So Jennifer Kimball said, I'm watching from home today, and I'm under the weather. Yeah, and she's doing it. But Jennifer's been coming as well. But if you would like egg hunt flyers, if you know anybody who would like to take some, feel free. Don't feel like you have to be sparing on these. If you hey, I can drop these off. I plan on giving Stephanie a giant stack for the flower shop and the barber shop. If I gotta get more, I gotta get more. That's no big deal. And then the last two, if you'd like to serve on Easter, feel free to let us know. And then this is kind of the big push. If you haven't been baptized, this is the key word, haven't been. I'm not trying to double baptize people. If you haven't been baptized and you'd like to be baptized, let us know. If you're I just want to fill that card out and I don't want to get the 3rd degree from Ryan, feel free. And if you're online and you'd like any of this information, message me, message my wife, she's sitting by, or you can always text the 9700 River Connect number. So with all of that, wow, that was a lot of information. Easter is even I looked at Gary, I was like, you want to do announcements this week or you want me to? Gary's like, I'm good with whatever. And I'm like, there's a ton of announcements, man. I was like, I'll do it. I'll do the out the gate because now Gary can remind you guys about baptisms, remind you guys to sign up. But when we start Easter stuff, we kind of go all in here. So really cool thing. Gary got all the eggs snapped together with the help of everybody else who took everything from us. So we're 3 weeks out, and all we have to do is candy packing. So next week, and this is even for you who's online, next week, we're not going to have the per se me teaching live stream. Pastor Jason will be teaching a lesson for all of our locations, but all of our locations that are in person, we're going to be putting together all the candy bags for Easter egg. So if you know, we don't put the candy in the eggs because that creates riots, stampedes, and I don't know if you've ever seen a parent ever try to protect their kid to make sure that their kid gets just as much as every other kid. Tends to create some tension with the other parent. So we've kind of learned from our mistakes. Every kid walks away with the same amount. I've had to de-escalate 3 times in Holly some situations where I was like, it's all good, but my kid didn't get candy. I'll go grab the barrel of candy and literally just dump all the candy on your kid. I'll let them take away the 5-gallon. It's not worth fighting over right now, but it does get rough. I'm watching I do this. I watched a little kid get hip checked one time, and I'm like, I can understand why that dad's upset. However, we're not going to start dropping these words in front of children. So that was a nice me in the field. That was always the thing. We haven't had that this year. Last year was or 2 years ago, it was great. But we make sure every kid walks out with candy. But what that means, we need to make sure that we put together probably close to 300, 400 bags of candy. So we'll all be kind of down in the kids' wing. We'll set up some tables, spread it out. The kids will be helping. If you can count to 20 and you can put stuff in bags, I think you're good to go. So and this is a big one. If you're not here, please be here next week. We need bodies. It's a fun task to do, but we need people here. And also, if you know somebody who is not here, invite them next week. We need people to help. So the only people who aren't going to be helping with this are going to be the nursery wing. I'm not sending my 4-year-old to go count candy because no, it'll be 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. Why is the person working with Zeke? Where's the candy going? And then Zeke's cheeks are like that. Don't even want to deal with it. But it will be fun. And this is a bit. But I have kids. We will give the kids candy. We understand what we're asking them to do. You need to count candy and you get none. No, we're going to make sure we give some kids a couple pockets of candy and we'll send them home. Oh, fine. You can have all the Starbursts in the world. If you want some Sweethearts or some Skittles, again, if I see Paula's leaving with her pockets all like that, hey, Paula, send those back this way. But that'll be kind of the next couple things. And honestly, like, this is a big one, and I know this is like the overly spiritual, but like you always hear it, but like we say it, we agree with it, then we seldom do it. Start praying for Easter now. Like, I've kind of talked to this, like, I don't like being whole humdrum, but like what we had last year was good. It didn't quite get the itch I needed out of Easter. Like, I was like, got to preach the gospel to nobody. Like, cool. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you watched it. But like, there was no interaction. I got to watch no lives being changed. I was telling like Gary and Pat and those guys, like, one of the biggest wins we had our first year for Easter was I watched a couple, and if you remember, like, I made people physically stand up if they wanted prayer, if they know they needed Jesus. Like, I really put it on them. Watching like a guy in a like just watching a dude's leg bounce, and like worship was going. I'm wrapping up. I'm like, come on, and like and he like hits his knee and he stands up, and like I just like instant chills, instant like yes, like it was so cool to watch. Just God work in his heart, where like you could see, I don't want to. I'm still good with God here, but like just watching him being like, went and talked with him again. Like, not saying, man, we saved the man's life, but God did something cool. I didn't have that last year. Like, I didn't get to watch that like amazing thing. Not to say God didn't do amazing things during Easter. I think that's like a scary thing to get into, but it's going to be really cool to be able to celebrate the resurrection with each other. So again, like wherever you're at on the spectrum, I'm excited just to be able to do that. So like again, like it was different this year or last year, and I'm glad God gave me the opportunity to do that because I think it was a learning experience. But I am very, very much so excited to be able to have everybody going crazy. Paula will probably cry at some point. Like it's just going to be beautiful. Like it's honestly like Easter and Christmas, coolest thing in the world, because you watch people who will say, I go to the River Church, and they come. We don't know big number, small number. We don't know why people can and can't make it, but it's a really cool thing to see. So after about 20 minutes of announcements in Easter time, does anybody have any questions about kind of, well, that's our first bug in here in the new year. Fantastic. Anybody have any questions about Easter? Cool. Easter question?
What do Seventh-day Adventists do? Because they don't believe in...
What do Seventh-day Adventists do? Oh, that's a wasp. Don't say that. It's my opportunity to become Wasp Man. No, every spider I see in the house, I actually say the same joke. I'm like, it's my opportunity to become Spider-Man. If it's radioactive, then it never bites me, and I'm always let down. Seventh-day Adventists don't believe. I think the only thing that they put time into, I think, I'm not completely brushed up on my Seventh-day Adventist. I think all they believe is the only thing you can celebrate is the resurrection. Birthday parties, anything else, I think there's only one thing you can celebrate, because if you celebrate anything else, it's taken away the celebration of the cross. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it is. So they believe in good food. Okay, that's I've had conversations with Seventh-day Adventists. I've been like, this was like early in my Christianity. I'm like, wait, so, huh? And like, I didn't understand. They're like, we don't do birthdays. Huh? Like, I couldn't get to certain things. But again, I like having the conversation rather than that. But to kind of jump into our book, I Am the Light of the World. I really enjoyed kind of preaching Sunday. Like, it was a lot of fun for me. Like, I wrote these lessons like a year ago. I got to spend some time studying, so I was really excited just to finally like, yes, we get to go now. So with the Light of the World, jumping in. So there is so much importance when it comes to where something is said. Timing makes a statement, and timing of making a statement, there we go, can become just as powerful as the statement itself. Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech is one of the most iconic speeches of all time. Add to that the power of the words of Dr. King is the fact that the speech was delivered on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. So we kind of talked about that. Like, there's tons of those that we can kind of go. But kind of for you guys, and online, jump in because I'd love to know this. What is the most memorable statement you have ever heard in your life, and why was it impactful? So what was the most memorable statement or statements that you have ever heard in your life, and why was it so impactful? I'll go very, very simple. Kathy said yes. Very easy, one word. That was the most memorable, and that was the most impactful. So what would you say was one of the most memorable statements or one of the most impactful statements you've ever seen? And I know I just used like the couple one, and everyone's like, yeah, me too. Sorry, Sonny, I beat you to the punch. What would you say would that be for you? Sonny just said, and Sharon's response was what? Kathy said, "Are you sure?" So don't worry about it. Like she's like, "Are you sure?" And like she, man, I don't have time for this. Kathy was like messing around, and like she was like, "I'm sure you got the ring somewhere," and she was like fadaddling through all my stuff, and then like I had it in like a wicker basket change thing, so like it was full of change, and then I buried the box in change, and like she literally picked the thing up and went like that. I'm like, okay, good. And then like I was like freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, everything's gonna go. But luckily she didn't catch on. But what would you say would be an impactful statement you've heard? What do you got, Gary?
I heard this at one of our classes at work. It's from Teddy Roosevelt. If you kick the person in the pants that caused most of the problems in your life, you wouldn't be able to sit down for a week.
Teddy Roosevelt is a scholar among men. So Gary said, Teddy Roosevelt, if you kick the person in the pants who's caused the most problems in your life, you wouldn't be able to sit down. Yep, I love TR's favorite president. True centralist. Love him. So, any other ones? I think for me, like, I'm a big, like, study speech. I love speeches. Like, I love going back, and I love press conferences. I love those things. But to be able to, like, and we kind of went over this on Sunday, to be able to really know what's going on really adds to that. So in John chapter 8, Jesus says, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. And this is one of the most well-known statements that Jesus makes. And it is even more amazing to look at the context of what was going around Jesus when he makes that statement. So here's kind of the thing. What do you think is significant about Jesus saying the light, what do you think is significant about Jesus saying he was the light of the world? Like when you hear Jesus say, I'm the light of the world, what makes that pop for you? What makes that important? So Mike Wing said yes when my wife said yes, so he put thumbs up, heart, and then Heidi said aw. I think you're saying aw to Mike Wing, but different story. Well, when you hear Jesus say, I'm the light of the world, like, what does that mean to you? Life, yeah. Guidance, yeah. Truth, yeah. Like, light is one of the most important theological concepts, but it's one of the hardest generally to completely to explain. So a really, really fun one for me is I used to mess with high school kids with this. You go back to Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created light. What was that light? It was the sun. No, it wasn't. That's day 4. What was the light? And like, what? The only light we can perceive and what we really, clearly we know Jesus, but we know artificial, man-made, and we know celestial, God-made, the sun, stars, etc., etc. There's only 2 types of light, but in Genesis it's a different type of light. So even stars, the sun, that's created light. But then there's man-made light, but then there's like God light. And to really explain God light, like that's when it gets, So again, guidance and truth and life, yeah, those are all true. But to really understand, like, there's a difference now that God said that there are some things in light and there are some things in darkness. So when Jesus says, I am the light of the world, he is not saying I'm the darkness of the world. So we understand, we always want to make sure that we're tipped towards the light. And there is no, you could go to Ephesians, you can go to, I think it's John, where it even says, like, anything you bring up, like anything darkness you bring to the light will reveal. That's one of the scariest prayers you ever can have in your life. God, I want to bring whatever's dark or whatever I don't see any blind spot, please reveal it to me. Then you just sit back and you wince because it's like, oh, but he will. And that's one of my favorite things about Jesus being, I am the light, and this is the big thing, of the world. I'm not the light of Christians, not just the light of the Jews. I am capable of being the light of the entire world. Now, whether or not people want to recognize the light, that's the very fun conversation, but he's the light of the world. So before we even get to Jesus' statements, and we kind of went over this Sunday, the whole thing about the Feast of the Booths, we talked about this, the three ways they celebrated the ceremony. So they had the everybody praying towards a direction, the water ceremony, which, again, if you want a really fun thing, jump into John chapter 9, the next chapter, about the pool of Siloam, and you see everything about the healing there. But then again, Jesus gets up in John 7. He's like, if anyone thirsts, like, I'm right here. Like, he's just dropping thing after thing about everything that's going on. But during this kind of festival, one of the things that they did, and I didn't really go into this on Sunday because I knew I was going to be teaching that. I didn't want to be overly redundant on Wednesday. But for the wicks, like we told you about the big candelabras and the 68 pounds or whatever of oil that they would have to use. And again, the healthy priest would go up to these 4 candelabras, make sure the wicks of what they would actually do, they would saturate in oil that they would put on the candelabra, were actually made of basically the priest's garments. So they would take their clothes, and if you know anything about like Hebrews and the priests, you couldn't get dirty, you had to stay away from dead things. Like, again, it was all about cleanliness. They would take their clothes, their priestly garments, and that would actually be the thing that they would braid together. They would dip it in oil, and that would actually be the wick to these giant candelabras. So imagine you standing there, you're one of the priests, and you're looking at that wick and being like, that's mine. That was my robe. That was my grandpa's robe. That was my son's robe. Again, most priests, it was a genealogy thing, so you can get all that stuff going on. So the Talmud states, this is the Jewish book that rabbis discuss in the Old Testament, states that the priests and other religious elite would make candle wicks out of old clothes. And it was said that there was not a courtyard in all of Jerusalem that was not lit up with the light from these candelabras. So think about, again, where the flame comes out, where the light comes out. It's coming out of your clothes. So this is the fun one. How do you think pride could have snuck into the hearts of the priests who provided the garments for these wicks? Oh, I had this one in my back pocket. I'm like, I want to preach this. I don't want to preach this. I know where I want to go. But how do you think pride, like, Jesus, I'm the light of the world. The Pharisees, no, it's all this that's going on. How could have pride snuck in with the priests? What do you think, Miss Diane?
I've heard Francis Collins, Dr. Francis Collins. He's head of the NIH. He was the head of the Human Genome Project.
Mm-hmm.
He is probably the most famous doctor in the world today.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him saying that the vaccine is God's gift to man. He said that. Now, if there's anybody supposed to know that, it would be Francis Collins.
Sure. How does that have to do with the wick and the priests?
I'm not hearing half of what you're saying.
Okay.
But, well, after I read his book on the Human Genome Project, I was trying to convince my grandson who was becoming an RN by book learning,
Sure.
which I tried to explain to him that it's not the way you become an RN. Clinical is how you become an RN. But, so I told him about Francis Collins, who is a Christian. And he said, well, he probably thought that Francis Collins was probably a little on the deep end.
Sure.
Well, now he is head of the NIH. And he's giving his testimony on public television that the vaccine is God's gift to man.
Well, I always try to let God decide what God's gift to man is, but I'm also not a prophet, so I always just kind of sit back and I know my lane of authority, and I'll stick to the Bible, and I go from there. But very well could be. But kind of the big thing, just to jump back, Mike Wing says nothing can survive without light. Just going back to that, the light. Heidi says the vision, it's the ability to see. You can't see without light. Very true. How many of you ever stubbed a toe in the middle of the night? Worst feeling in the world. Like, have you ever had like to stub the toe and you drop instantly? Like you just fall to the ground, you don't know what happened, you're just like Winston pain. I hate those. But I really like this. Kathy says, I think of taking away darkness. So I think that becomes a really cool thing. It's not just, again, like you don't see dark and light. Like we don't just move the dark to the side of the room like when we turn the lights on here. Like dark goes away. That's really, really good, Kathy. But how do you think pride, though, entered into the priest's heart when it came to making these garments? By what they used?
I mean, if they did their fancy dancy stuff, then, mine's brighter than yours.
Oh, that's good. So being like, yeah, Ted. I don't know if Ted's not an official Hebrew name, so don't run with me like there's a guy by the name of Ted in the Bible. But yeah, like, hey, Ted, man, ours is better. But you're right, like there can be that competition. Stephanie, did you want to add something? Mm-hmm. That's really good. So Stephanie was just saying, like, so Jesus is saying, I'm the light of the world. For them, they thought they had a worthy position. They're reputable in the community. But then for Jesus to be like, this ain't it, that brought them down. And how well do prideful people do with that humble moment? There's a reason why I don't like again, people, oh, this is great. Like, don't, like, it's not false humility. It's just genuinely, like, I'm already a proud person. I'm already a prideful person. Like, I try to make sure that I'd rather stay on the end of, like, nah, thank you. I appreciate moving forward. But you're right, like, to be sitting there and even, like, Paula's idea, like, oh, mine's brighter. Like, well, wait, this isn't about me? That is like one of the biggest statements to bring out of a prideful person. Like, it's not about you. That's one of the hardest, like, gulps to swallow ever. That's really, really good. Anybody else could think those are really, really good? Any other, like, I hate when it's like, that was really, really good, then someone's like, I don't want to say anything else after that. Any other, like, how could pride sneak in? For me, I agree. The competition thing, I think I think a big thing becomes like the idea that this place wouldn't exist without me is like something that, like, again, as a pastor, like, I never thought it would be a real thing. And then I started being up here for a little bit. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see how pastors struggle with that. Like, I got to be there. I'm the only one who can fix this. I'm the only one who can do a good job. Like, it's like, no, it's the body of Christ. That's why we equipped people. That's why I'm very, very big about getting people to serve. And, like, I love that Paula does, like, guest services. I love that Gary's knocking it dead with students. Nope, doesn't hinge on me. But for a priest, if they're sitting there, like, man, they're lucky we had these clothes. We're enjoying the feast of the booths, but they're lucky we did this. You got the big, strong, strapping, like, monstrous Dwayne The Rock Johnson priest guy going up with, like, the 78 pounds or 68 pounds of, like, oil, being like, yeah, doing my gains all year to be able to do this. And it's like, they missed it. Pride causes us to miss stuff. So what do you got, Gary?
Don't you think that, I kind of lost my train of thought. This was like a picture of Christ they were celebrating anyway.
Yes.
And then Christ, he is the high priest. I mean, he's saying, I'm the guy, this is all a picture of what I'm doing.
Yes, and that becomes, like, again, the pillar, the cloud before them, the pillar of fire, were all meant to be pictures of Christ. Like, when you read the Old Testament, like, most everything points to Christ in one way, shape, or form. And I say, like, most everything because, like, just be careful on what you say does. Like, for the most part, I can get behind some stuff. Some stuff people can go in, like, way left field. Like, I've heard people, the reason why Abraham sent 318 people is because if you break that down in the Greek, it's J-C in the Greek, and then the, like, 8 is a T, and they're like, see, it's because of Jesus. Like, no. I think he just had 318 horsed men. Like, so most everything points. So, like, again, finding those significance. The pillar of fire, absolutely, because the Bible in Exodus even says it was God who went before them. We're kind of in belief of the Trinity here. So, like, if you see God in the Old Testament, that does mean the Son. That does mean the Spirit. Like, so you're absolutely right, but they're celebrating what they thought they understood about God. And then Jesus, I'm the reason you will know the Father. And I absolutely love that. Like, there are time machine moments, and I know I probably couldn't spend, like, all 30 years, like, just with Jesus, 3 years with him. Like, I feel like I would get caught up. Like, but those statements alone, and people were like, huh? Like, he's, like, pulling it all together, like, in the middle of the festival, like, what is this guy talking about? He's like, no. Like, tabernacle, yeah, I get it. The presence of the Lord, the glory of the Lord inside of the pillar of fire. I'm that. I'm the one who was in the furnace with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I'm the one who separated the Red Sea. I'm the one who calmed the sea when the Ark of the Covenant walked across the Jordan River. Like, I'm the one who brought Jericho down. All those things. Like, you could go back Old Testament and you can find when missed it. It's so, like, dude, Gary's just spot on. Like, all that was going on, and Jesus purposely put himself there, and nobody could look at Jesus as Jesus. Now, he also wasn't completely revealed yet because he didn't die on the cross, so there's a little bit of that, but they missed it. So all of this, add all this information up, and we see Jesus saying, I am the light of the world. He's at the exact location with the exact group of people, and at that exact time in John chapter 8, Jesus was arguing with Pharisees and the religious elite, and in John chapter 8, verse 20, and these words he spoke in the treasury as he taught in the temple. I love that. Jesus was exactly where he needed to be to teach this truth. And you keep going, and remember, Jesus already said, and again, Jesus spoke to them, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So what is the deeper significance to Jesus saying he's the light of the world in light of everything that's going on? And I think Gary kind of hit that. It wasn't the festival. It wasn't the Feast of the Booths. I am the true light of the world. And again, if we double back to John chapter 7, not that we wrote about this, this is like in my sermon notes, and I'm like, I want to go preach that someday. During the Feast of the Booths, they had the water festival where they would go get water from Siloam, they would put wine in there, and then Jesus is saying in the same way, I'm the reason why you won't thirst, come to me. Like, I want to go back and study every single time Jesus taught in the temple and what was going on and then what he said, because I think it's a direct reaction to whatever's going on. But I really kind of like this question. What is the major difference between the priests providing the light of Jerusalem and Jesus saying he was the light of the world? What is the major difference between Jesus saying the priest saying that they were the light of Jerusalem and Jesus saying he was the light of the world? Because he is eternal. Yes?
Yeah, there's a temporary going to burn out eventually,
Yes. Yes. Like that eternal light. Like, it's crazy to think, like, the sun, let's be honest, we know what's going to happen at about 7 o'clock tomorrow. Could be faulty logic, because, again, just because it happened today doesn't mean that it's going to happen tomorrow. That's like one of the bad ways. But we all have a good hunch that the world's going to keep turning around, and we're going to hit 7:30-ish, and all of a sudden what's going to start cracking in the east? The sun. But there will be one day that the sun burns out. Like, I don't know if we're going to get to space exploration. I don't know if we're going to go terraform Mars. I'm very intrigued to see how this whole thing works itself out. I'm all for preaching the gospel on Pluto one day. That'd be a really fun goal of mine. I want to preach the gospel on another planet. I don't know if that's something God has in his plan. But in the same right, like we do have to look at that, the eternal aspect of God versus, again, the city aspect. Even for the Jews, who do the Jews say that God was for? Only the Jews. Jesus, though, again, putting it completely on its head, I am the light of the world. Those Gentiles that you hate because you don't like them because they eat bacon and pig and they act differently and they don't celebrate the holidays that you do, yeah, I'm the light for them too. What do you got, Sonny? Mm-hmm. And yes. Yes, and Sonny's putting out like, Jesus is the light of the world, but you have to accept the fact that the light of the world is the Lord. There is no freebie with Jesus. Like, yeah, I mean, you died on the cross, man. I'm good by association. No. That's why Romans says that you need to confess with your mouth and believe in your heart that Jesus Christ rose from the grave and you will be saved. Oh, I think I think two ways. One, you have to profess that Jesus is Lord. I also think that what people think professing Jesus is different than what they think. And this is the group that Matthew 7:21, the scariest verse in the Bible, all that come to me and say, Lord, Lord, like, and Jesus looks at them and like, I didn't know you. Like, but I did these things. I casted demons out and I did all these religious things. He's like, you didn't know me. Depart from me, you, like, I think it's a evildoer. You're like a person of iniquities. Like, there's so much strong language in that where it's like, like, I don't know how you can read Matthew 7:21 and not have at least that second, like, I want to re-pray salvation real quick. Just I want to make sure that I'm good. Like, that one gets me because it's pastors. But I proclaim the Word of God every Sunday. I watch people come to know you. I taught Bible studies. I did kids ministry. I did all-nighters. I did camp. I did hospital visits. And Jesus being like, that ain't it, man. And I think that's, like, Sonny, you're definitely on point. Like, yes, we can say Jesus is the light of the world, but we don't just get that by association. There has to be confession. And that's something like, this is the thing that, like, keeps me up at night, because I don't know where you're at with Jesus. I pray, like, again, if you notice, I tend to come back and preach the gospel to Christians because I think Christians need to hear the gospel. We need to honestly, like, have that gut check every once in a while. And again, go back to that pride thing. If you're like, nah, I'm good. I don't ever got to check my relationship with Jesus. It's always good. I know I got to go back and check it every once in a while. Not that I'm, like, worried about, like, my relationship with him, but, like, am I on point? Am I doing good? Because, again, what is sin? Sin is darkness. What does darkness do? Darkness blinds you. So if you're not living in the light, it's really easy to walk around like this and be like, I'm good. Playing Marco Polo with Jesus, man. Like, that's not the way we're supposed to live. You're supposed to see him. You're supposed to see the light. But the eternal aspect, though, and I think that's, like, one of my favorite things, though, to kind of pull it back to the major difference. Like, Jesus, eternally, I will be the light of the world. Revelation even says, who is going to be the light in heaven? It's God. It's Jesus, the one who's sitting at the throne. Like, if these aren't things that, like, make you like, like, go read Revelation 21 and 22 tonight. Like, if you need an amen moment, go read those and be like, all things are covered. World's nuts. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand what's left and right, but okay. Revelation 21, 22. Woo! Glad that's at least taken care of. But it's a beautiful picture that I am the light of the world, and then even, again, New Jerusalem, new heaven, new earth, like, again. And it says there is no light because he is the light. So Jesus' illumination has the power to illuminate heaven. Heaven is eternal. There is no beginning, there is no end in heaven, but Jesus' light is strong enough to illuminate all of heaven. I don't know where you get with your abstract thinking with the Bible, but that's one of those, like, That's really cool. But I am the light of the world. So one aspect of Jesus announcing he is the light of the world, he proclaimed it, and Jesus told a group of people who were spiritually blind that he was the light of the world, and whoever follows me will not walk in darkness. So go to that. He's talking to the Pharisees. He's talking to a group at the temple. The people at the temple are celebrating the Feast of the Booth. He looks at a group of people who are spiritually blind. He says, I'm the light of the world. And then I love this. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness. How easy is it to follow something in the dark? I love Jesus. Like the poeticness here, and then this is I don't think I go into it in this one. What's the next chapter in John? So we go to John chapter 8 when he's talking about he's the light of the world. John chapter 9 is Jesus healing a blind man. This is like, I don't know where you're at with like geeking out in the Bible, but it's like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like everything flows perfectly. So he's talking to people again. What does he show then the Pharisees? I have the ability to make the blind see. Like there's not a single iota of Jesus' teaching that is ever out of place. The next chapter is John chapter 9 where Jesus gets awkward, spits in mud, puts it in the dude's eye. Like it's really out there stuff, but it's really, really funny. But Jesus shows, yeah, I'm the light of the world. But in John chapter 9, he's like, I know you're spiritually blind. I know you can't see anything. But I have the ability to open your eyes so you can follow me. This is why I could have done a 3-hour sermon on Sunday. I was like, we could have done an intermission and just like done John 7, John 8, John 9, and I'm even at the point John 10 is the exact same stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to go back and rewrite this book because this is just like a beautiful thing. Spend some time there, but Jesus, this is all one teaching. So I love that. But when he's telling this group that's blind, whoever follows me will not walk in darkness. Jesus wanted everybody to know that he was the light to illuminate their path back to him. For the Pharisees in the Jewish nation, they were focused on making sure that the light shone inwardly. So their festival was for them, the Jews in Jerusalem. And how often is the church today focused on making sure that the light of the world is only for those who want to give it to? So when Jesus says, your festival's off, you're just trying to shine it for Jerusalem. You're not trying to shine it to other people. You're spiritually blind. You're walking around. But how often does the church wind up doing that? So how important is it, and how does the church shine the light to the world? Having an egg hunt. You knew my answer before you even went there. Yeah, like, it sounds silly. It could be trite, and like you could get like, you could watch the live stream when we do it, and like, Ryan, I think you should have preached a deeper message, and you might be able to. I did very simple Romans, confess with your mouth, believe in your heart, sin separates. I didn't go super deep, but you're right. Like, it's doing stuff like that. It's inviting darkness to light because we're not afraid of darkness because we have the light. You also have to be consistent and show love. You have to be consistent in showing the light. Like, it's not a flashlight. You're going to be like, hold on a second. Like, lighthouses, man. What if a lighthouse owner turned off the light? I want to go on break. Ships are cracking.
The psychology that Jesus used, don't you think we could do a whole lot better than, let's say, the Islamic people who don't believe what Jesus said, except that they do believe he's going to come back and clean the mess up. They do believe that.
They do believe Christ is going to come back. They do believe that Christ was a prophet. They do believe that Christ got crucified. They do not, Islamic people, Nation of Islam, Islamic religion does not believe that Christ was Messiah. That is offensive that God came down in the flesh. Like, that's where they're at. But you're right, to take, how did Jesus teach? Yeah. How did he teach? Now, he's getting kind of big here. You know what I mean? Like, again, he's not like, I don't take this in a meek tone like, guys, I'm the light of the world. You're spiritually blind. Like, even if you go and you read, even when he stands up in the middle of this festival. Again, the frenzy you read about, the water you read about in this time. He stands up in the middle of it. He's like, I am the light of the world. Like, I think the psychology of that, like, we got to look at, like, there are times we do have to love the consistency of showing light. But then there's times we got to kind of drop that truth there. We can't, oh yeah, I don't really mean that, but I don't want to be offensive, but have you ever like backed away from like, you got to tell truth, and then you're like, it's hard, man. Like, it's very hard because, like, again, you don't want to come off as a Bible thumper. You don't want to come off as rude. You don't want to push anyone away from Christ. But Diane, to your point, you're right. Like, for us, like, how did Jesus shine the light?
He shined it different ways for different people.
So now this is the fun one. Who did Jesus always blast? The Pharisees. The ones who said that they're religious. This is the church crowd. Jesus blasted the crowd that claimed to know what was right. Jesus was the sweetest dude to, like, again, the Gentiles and the sick. Like, again, you look at what happens with the widow or the lady with the blood issue who reaches out and touches his garment. Who did that? Like Peter's like, yeah, it was like, there's so many people. Like, no, who did it? Like, it's all right. You look at the way he handled, like, again, the sick, the lame, the beggars. Like, I don't take much oomph there. But you look at what he says to the Pharisees, not even others, to the disciples. Whew, the disciples, he's like, how much longer do I got to be with you guys? You just don't get it. I would hate to be on the boat at that moment, sitting there, like, you're sitting by Jesus, is like, how much longer must I deal with this world? Like, all right, man, like, I just had another question for you. Like, Jesus gets on him. But you're right, he shines differently. Light does act differently. Like, and this becomes something. If you got somebody who's spiritually just blind, you shouldn't be walking up to that person and just punching them as hard as you can. But I'll say this, let anybody come at me who wants to, like, argue any theology, who wants to think there's something, those are my favorite conversations. This is what the church should be doing. Do tell first-year seminary student, 19-year-old out of youth ministry who's going to say how the church should do stuff. Like, let's talk. But it's the prideful that Jesus goes to. And I love that, because if we go to James, the book of James, what does the Bible say? God resists the proud. Gary, what do you got to add, buddy?
So the question was, how do we take it to the world?
Yeah.
So I can live in our lives for Christ consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, huge. Like, in my workplace, everybody knew that, I talked about it. I was passionate about what was going on in the church, just like I am about fishing or anything else. So I would talk about it, what's going on. And then people would respond to that eventually.
Yeah.
My friends, this week, one of my buddies from work called me up and asked me to pray.
Yeah, that's great.
And, I've had people ask me about anger and things
Mm-hmm.
like that, which was something that I have struggled with in my life. So God always puts, first of all, you have to live your life and not be weird. So people will relate to you, and you have to build relationships with people and talk about it. And then when the time comes,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be bold enough to say, this is it.
Gary just brought up, like, it's the best way to shine your life is you live out your life. Like, and I think this becomes a thing. Like, I love that you lived it out where you worked. It wasn't this extraordinary thing. I think a lot of times, we've had these conversations with, like, student ministry and stuff like that. Like, we got to go to Guatemala, and, like, we'll get to, like, we'll go to, like, mission trips with students, and, like, you're watching them, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest youth group I've ever had in my life. Like, they're a team, they're encouraging, they're bold enough to go pray with people, they're meeting people that they have no idea. They're saying Jesus Christos to people who are, like, walking down the road and saying, like, gringo and white person and, like, all these bad things. Like, you're just like, that's great. But that's not real life. Like, the fact that you're like, you got to live it out consistently wherever you're at. Like, and Gary just brought up, like, he had people come up and talk to him. I think that becomes the key, is they have to see the difference. Like, I love and I hate this mantle that we put on Christians, but, like, you could do 100 things right and do one thing wrong. Hypocrite. I don't love that, but there's also, like, when we're on, and we never know who's watching us. I have a mentality, more's caught than taught. You could walk into your Bible like, all right, looking at Gary doing Genesee County Road Commission, brings big old Bible. All right, guys, we're going to go through the dispensations of Christ. Open your Bible to Genesis 1. Like, it's like people like, oh, exactly. Like, everybody's just up and gone. Like, I would scatter if I sat down and someone's like, we're talking like, I'm out, man. Like, I can't do that stuff. Hold on. Scott Richardson's here. Scott, I need you to send me a message because you were somebody that I brought up today. So Scott is on our live stream right now. Like, he just jumped on. It's like, hello. So, like I told you, like, he jumps on. Like, I want to desperately meet you. I want to go to lunch with you, Scott. So let me know when you're available. But Gary's absolutely right, though. Like, this idea of you got to live it out consistently. Like, I've had conversations with, like, Stephanie about, like, conversations and stuff that happens in the floral shop. People call you and they ask you, like, again, when somebody's world starts crumbling, they typically go to the person who has the solution. If they don't think you have the solution, where are they going to go? But this becomes the reality. But they go to other people because they think they have the solution. I would argue Christians walk around really ho-hum and grumpy all the time. If we really have the joy of the Lord that is unspeakable, like, it's like, what is up with you? But what do we walk around with? Good. How was Sunday? Good. Goes a long way. It's contagious. Literally, a smile is contagious. This is the funny thing. If I say yawn, who's going to yawn in the next 5 minutes? I'm going to be watching this for... I'm watching you now. Someone's going to be dying to, like, not yawn right now. But again, that's the same thing that can happen with, like, again, an attitude. But if, like, again, we're showing the joy of the Lord, like, again, I knew Gary's work schedule. Like, again, when it's rough and you're still like, all right, it's a bummer moving forward. Like, dude, why are you different? I had that, again, the village, same thing happened with me. Like, I wasn't out there preaching. I mean, people could see Ezekiel 36:26 on my arm with my tattoo, but, like, I had a kid who bit me, spit on me, swore at me, all the gross stuff. I never lost my cool on the kid once. And, like, one of the ladies, like, she goes to a church in Pontiac. She's like, I got a question for you, Mr. Story. And I'm like, what's up? She's like, you know Jesus, don't you? And I'm like, yep. And she's like, I knew it. And, like, she's like, we've watched you. She's like, you've never lost your cool one time on Kevin. And I'm like, well, now I'm freaked out because, like, I can't say that I have. Like, there were like, drug this kid to the bench. Like, that's where we took kids when they had to go back to, like, their kid was kicking, spitting, throwing chairs. He landed on the ground and started kicking me. I was like, I'm not playing this right now. Let's just go. Nicely took him to where he needed to be. Went to the principal. I'm like, I broke all CPI. I broke all policies. I was like, I'm sorry. Couldn't deal with the kid today. But I knew I wasn't perfect. But what did she see? And I think that becomes, like, for somebody to call you, and I'll say from a personal level, from a friendship level, for someone to call you and ask, like, hey, man, how do I help with, like, anger, and how do I help with it? That's great, dude. That's a very big testament of how far you've come. That's a really cool thing. But I think for people to see the growth, though, we mess up by trying to say that, like, hey, we got to always have it together. It's okay to say you're a little bit struggling. It's okay to say you don't know what's going on. It's okay to say you're weak. That's an all right thing. But this is what I love. We're going into 2 Corinthians, who makes us strong in our weakness. But if we never get to that truth, oh, man, now they're just complaining. Man, those Christians complain a lot. I thought they believed in a God who's in complete control. Yeah, they do, but they still complain. That was my argument when I was an atheist. I was like, dude, Christians drive me nuts. But the reality, I think this is huge. Like, we have to get to a place, the light of the world. I love this. To kind of conclude on this, Kathy, you're the best. She's going after. Kathy's like, Scott, Ryan wants to meet with you. I love it. But Matthew chapter 5 really kind of hones this down. So what does the church need to do? Again, egg hunts. Heidi says service with a smile. Love it. Serve somebody. Like, one of my favorite things to do, even if nobody ever knows, and, like, but, like, picking somebody's Tim Hortons up or coffee up. And then you just say like, hey, just God, like, I mean, you tell the person at the window. And I just felt God loves that person. The Tim Hortons clerk isn't probably going to preach the gospel to that person, but again, if you tell that person, but then that train go, oh my gosh, look at that Christian did that. Pastor Chuck did that to me a couple weeks ago. He bought my McDonald's, and then I bought somebody's McDonald's, and I guess like it went like 2 or 3 cars. So like when I was leaving, they're like, 3 more people did it, and I'm like, cool. Pastor Chuck bought 3 kids Happy Meals. Like I know for a fact it was not as expensive. But the light of the world, and I love this. Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 to 16 says, you are the light of the world. I love that. Jesus, I am the light of the world. So we know he's the eternal. But I love Jesus' statement here because he says, you are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. So first thing, how do we become the light of the world if Jesus says he is the light of the world? This is a very important thing that we have to make sure we know. Kind of goes with Sonny's statement as well. How do we become the light of the world if Jesus says he's the light of the world? We have to be saved, follow Jesus. We have to be God's children. Yeah. So Gary is saying, like, same way, like, again, the Pharisees used their robes to light things up, but this becomes a thing. What do you put on when you are won by Christ? You put on the robe of righteousness. Like, we wear white in heaven. It's pretty cool. Like, that becomes a thing. You put on the armor of God. You put on the righteousness of Christ. The imputed righteousness of God comes around you. This is the beautiful thing. Well, this is like the deep theology. When we get to heaven, God doesn't see you. God sees the blood of the Lamb that washed over you. So the reason why he looks past all of your sin isn't because of like, man, you were that super great Christian. He sees that you have the blood of the Lamb washed over you. And yes. Yep. So we have to have, so we become the light of the world only when we truly know the Savior of the world. You can't shine your light if it's not Jesus' light. That's not how it works. Like, that light, like we kind of even said, it's temporary. It'll go away. So even if it's like, man, like, they're really firing on everything, and there's like, it's all fake, it's all base level, it's all surface level, there's no real Jesus, that ripple will stop at some point. But the true light of Christ will not stop. So like, I look at this, and just to be respectful, like, I have an opportunity, and I don't know if my brother will ever have children, but like, I'm kind of restarting like our family line. It's a daunting and a cool thing. So like, all boy genealogy hinges on myself and my brother. Brother doesn't have kids right now. I don't know if he's going to. He might. I don't know. But right now, I am going to have 3 sons. The genealogy is going to start over where we know Christ, and we go from there. So that's like, for me, the light is going to go with that. Now, again, I'm not saying my kids are going to be perfect. I'm not going to, like, they could fall away. I don't know what's going to happen. However, I'm going to be doing my darndest to make sure that they know Jesus. And, like, I got 18 years of, like, you ain't getting away from it. So I had the realization I only have 13 more summers with Broly. And I'm like, eep, time to start, like, amping up the level. But I have 18 summers with my kids. I want to make sure that they know light. But it goes back to this idea that we see the light of the world. Like, it's not just shining light, Ryan's story light. It's not just shining light, fill in your blank. It's not, man, I'm just a super nice person. I serve well. I love what. That's not the light we're talking about. The light we shine, like Gary even said, they see Jesus in your actions, even to kind of jump it, so that they may see your good works. And it doesn't stop there. There's no period. And give glory to your Father who's in heaven. If somebody just stops and sees your good works, cool, they saw your good works. But this is the caveat. They bring it back to seeing Jesus. And the glory of the Lord was inside of that pillar of fire. That pillar of fire illuminated the path. Beautiful thing when you start doing this with like theology. I don't know if you've seen the meme like where guys like connecting all the dots and he looks like crazy. That's me when I read the Bible. Like it's so much fun. So kind of the last two questions. How do you personally shine your light before others? What is something that, and again, I'm not asking for pride. I'm also not asking for fake pride. How do you purposely, like, this is the way I'm going to go shine my light. This is how I'm going to shine the light of Christ. How do you wake up every morning and you're like, this is what I'm going to go do. This is what I'm going to make sure I do.
It bothers me about the Pharisees. They knew the rules, but they didn't know how to apply them. They
Yeah.
had no compassion. Why is it that the man sat there for 35 years and had no one to put him into the...
Oh, the pool of Siloam. Yeah. So,
Because the Pharisees were not wanting to put him in.
Miss Ann, the Pharisees knew the rules, but they had no compassion. You're right. Like, Pharisees, though, that's dirty. Okay. Like, but you're right. Like, you can know all the rules and just be heartless. Like, I've been saying it the last couple of months. Like, there's a difference between somebody who knows elements of the gospel and a true Christ follower. You can know all the Bible, you can know all the jargon, you can know all that stuff. It doesn't mean that you, again, if you truly know Christ, you probably love like Christ in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying you got to be like a bleeding heart. Like, I'm not a bleeding heart to stuff, but like, I still love like Jesus. But you're right. So how do you personally shine your light before others? I already know Paula's. I'll put it as I'll say, Paula is one of the most welcoming people I've ever met in my entire life, and this was one of my favorite things. That when I got to come up here to Burton, I needed a guest service prefill, and after 3 weeks, I was like, "You're it." Like there wasn't a doubt in my mind, and like I will always forever cherish the conversation that I had. Paula's like, "Not me." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "You love people when they come here." I was like, "It's definitely you." But yes, like being able to be a welcome. One of my really cool things. So Fred and Annette, who are here on Sunday, I called them today. They walked away. They both put a Facebook post on the River Church Burton and all that stuff. Love the praise and worship. One of the most welcoming churches ever. I was greeted by people. And one of my favorite things, and again, I'm not trying to like alleviate my responsibility on a Sunday, but like it wasn't, man, the pastor found me the moment I came here. Like, yes, that went to talk to him, but I love the fact that more often than not, when people say why they want to get connected to Burton, man, the greeting team was right there. It's because, again, Gary, Paula's, again, I've seen so many of you, you see a new face, and you guys pounce. I love it. It's my favorite thing, because then I have to get in line with people on Sunday when I'm like trying to say bye to them. Like, I'll wait. Okay, Gary now. Okay, and Paula's saying bye. Okay. Hi, nice to see all you guys say. Just wanted to say thanks for coming. Like, they've already told you everything else. Like, if you need anything, let me know. But, like, that's a great problem to have. Like, that's how this. Anyone else, how would you say, like, this is how I shine the light? So we got 10 minutes. I really want to land on this last question here. I'll say, this is the false, like, this is a hard one. Stephanie, do you have something you want to say? You look like you're ready to go. So, but that becomes a big one. God controlling your mouth is a way of shining your light. Oh. I'm excited. Come 2 Corinthians, I'm trying to figure out how to do hold every thought captive, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. I think they all like flow into one, but like that's a huge one. Stopping yourself from saying something. Oof. Marriage has helped me a lot. Like I've learned, like, oh, you don't just say that. So really cool. So Heidi says the sidebar. Let's get one of those maps and the string push-ups for Ryan on a Sunday morning. Maybe I'll start doing Sunday morning Growth Communities Bible study. I don't think you guys know what you're in for. So Heidi, just so you know, you brought this upon yourself. Mike Wing, I love this. Again, show me your faith through works, and I'll show you my works through faith. That's true. Again, you're working. Why? You're motivated by your faith. You're motivated by your works, and this is what I love. What were the Pharisees motivated by? So, since the wicks of the candelabras were made with the priest's clothing, there was a bit of pride and arrogance that went along with the shining light. What if I said, oh, I'm a great teacher? Pat gets up here, and again, he's a beautiful musician, and just like, oh, yeah. Shining that light of Christ, blah, 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 blah. It's not it. I mean, we do guest services, and there's pride saturation. We're able to welcome communities and do amazing things. We're able to do student group. But if that string of pride gets wrapped in there, like, it taints the entire thing. So I think this is why I love Jesus' like, I'm the light. How do you make sure that there's no pride? You go back to that truth. Who is the true light? If anything of godly rapport at all is happening here, it is not because of me. It is not because of you. It is not because of our guest service team or our nursery or our kids ministry or our tech or our band or our amazing parking lot or the sweet lights we have or the camera that we have that's doing it. None of that. If anything of light is happening here at the River Church Burton, it is because of the true light is shining. Now, do we have some responsibility making sure, again, our works are going? Yes, absolutely. But it has nothing to do with us. Nothing to do with the eloquence that comes out of my mouth. Nothing to do with my nothing. And I want to, I say that purposely. It's not false bravado. It's nothing that I do makes Jesus do anything here. It is all clinging to Him, pleading to Him, and seeing Him do amazing things. Like, come check out Sunday night. We're having, 22 on average coming here? And 22 high school kids on average coming here. Middle school kids, excuse me. That's phenomenal. Like, it's insane what's happening, like, with Awana. It's insane to us. Like, we're right there for cracking 100. It has nothing to do with anything. It's Jesus. But I love this question. How do you make sure that the light you are shining to others is the light of Jesus and not your own piety? Piety means your religious bravado. This becomes something to stop, and this is like that humbling, like, I don't know where you're at with your dependence on Jesus, but this is kind of like the big question. We're going into a season where we want to see Jesus move. And I'll say this, if that's what light wants to do, we know that dark doesn't want it to happen. So dark, all things Satan, all things the enemy, all things the ultimate liar, all things the deceiver, are going to want to make sure that we get caught up in, the River Church Burton did this amazing egg hunt.
We have to stay in the spotlight of Jesus.
Yes. We have to stay in the spotlight, and I'll say sometimes we got to move out of the spotlight.
No, I'm just saying that Jesus has to illuminate, not that we have attention,
Yeah.
spotlight, so to speak, but we have to stay within that light.
Yes.
The eternal light.
Yes, we stay within, you stay in your lane.
That is how we do not get prideful.
Yes.
If we stray and try to make our own light, we're just going to fizzle.
Yes.
That's when we get prideful.
I love it. When we try to produce our own light, we fizzle out. I hate, like, I've been in ministry for too long, and I see that. And it's like, ugh. Like, I'm getting to be the guy who's been around the block a few times, and I'm like, that's going to hurt you soon, bud. And it happens. Like, and I hate that I'm right, but you're right. Like, the fizzle out, like the burnout, it's because there's not that dependency. I want this church, I want this location, I want you to be wholly, completely devoted to making sure that we show the light of Christ. So one of the things I've always kind of used for that, what's the best way to shine light? Reflection. What's the best way for us to do it? Like, again, we're a mirror. We're a bill. Like, again, if we're a mirror and all we're doing is taking the true light and doing that, like, that's all we're doing. I'm just making sure you see Jesus, man. Like, yep, He's given me the ability to do an egg hunt. He's given me the ability to preach. He's given me the ability to floral arrangements, cut hair, nursing. Like, I can go through everything. Like, greet people. I'll say Paula and Gary are way better with people, in my opinion, than I am. Like, we all have those gifts. We all have those abilities. We have the ability to shine the light of Christ. The key is making sure that we're reflecting Him, not just being like, oh, that's da-da-da-da.
I have a reminder. It's like a bookmark, and it says, reflect Christ today.
Yeah, that reflect Christ today. That's just what the light of the world. So I love this. Jesus, I am the light of the world, but I love that, again, it's Jesus saying this, Matthew, you are the light of the world. You, I think you pray and ask for Jesus. Again, again, like when we have true repentance, we have that. But this is like, God be with me. Like this is like being mindful of how we step. Like again, this is being mindful of how we think. Like I got to go have that meeting today. I don't like that person. And maybe you should get your head around the fact that you might be stepping into a highly volatile situation. But you're right. Like every morning, this is what I love. The Bible says that God's mercies renew every day. So if you messed up yesterday, guess what, God? And if you wake up in the morning and you go, He gave you mercy, He gave you another shot at this. I think that, again, the fallacy of tomorrow, I think, ruins Christians. Again, I'm not trying to sing Tim McGraw's Live Like You're Dying or anything like that, but man, that's a motivational song if you really take it like that. People are like, don't sing. But that becomes something for me. So again, Heidi, this is a very kind word. So Heidi says, yes, she loves Sunday nights. Sunday nights are so humbling. Being real with kids about life is such a great way to experience God and be in the light at the same time. Yes. All things family ministry, kids, nursery, like I thought I was going to grow out of that over the time being here. Nope, never did. Love student ministries just in a different capacity. Love kids ministry, just a different capacity. Love nursery ministry, different capacity. But it is one of the coolest things when you start seeing people understand light. I think that's like huge. And this is the big one. Start inside of your home. Where do I start? Start with your spouse. Start with your kids. Then work your way out. Like if I'm shining my, like this is the big thing in the pastoral protection, if I'm shining my light to you guys, but I'm a complete like dull when I get home, that's not a good thing. My kids, I'll say this, I'm working on my like, why do 4-year-olds not respond unless you raise your voice? Like someone like talk to me afterwards, I don't understand that, but like that becomes the reality. Like if my kids don't see the Jesus in me, what hope do I have if my wife doesn't see the Jesus in me? Like, reflect those lights. But, like, that's where I want us to be. So, again, I've loved the lesson. Kind of we'll wrap up. Again, if you're online, you're joining us, let us know if there's anything we do. Scott Richards, Richardson, I'm coming for you. I'm finding you on Facebook. I want to know who you are. But, again, if you guys need anything, let me know. If you want any of these flyers, we have some at guest services. If you got any questions about Easter, let us know. But like right now, I know I got 2 people signed up for the 11 o'clock baptismal. That's really cool. I think Bree has 3 or 4 kids ready to go. So like, that's awesome. I'm absolutely pumped. Just to, like, even if we have 5, again, I'd love to see 20. That'd be sweet. But if you know someone, like again, this becomes that conversation. One, make sure they know Jesus. We're not baptizing for the sake of pageantry and numbers. I'm happy with what we have, but like I'm excited to see what God has in store for us on Easter. So, as always, if we can do anything, let us know. Easter's coming up. So next week, again, if you're joining us later, please be here at the River Church Burton at 6:30 next week. We're going to start doing, like, we'll start our I'll do a Devo at like 6, we'll say 6:35-ish. We'll give everybody that 5-minute Burton leeway because, let's be honest, Burton needs that 5-minute leeway sometimes. But we'll do a Devo, and then we'll start packing candy. So I hope to see you guys all next week. Thank you for joining us online, but let me pray, and we'll kind of wrap up for the night. So Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to you because we love you. Lord, and I know that can be such a trite and easy thing to say, Lord, but Lord, thank you for being the light of the world. For those who are here, for those who are watching online, thank you for allowing us to know this truth. Thank you for revealing that aspect of who you are. But Lord, I pray that we never walk a day in darkness, Lord. I pray that when we see darkness, Lord, we run back to you. But Lord, I know that's easier said than done. So Lord, show us how great the light is, Lord. Illuminate in our lives the areas that we need you for, so we can keep running back to you. But Lord, shine your light through this Easter season, Lord. We're excited to see your name be glorified and your kingdom be expanded. So Christ, we love you. And Lord, we pray this all in your name. Amen. So guys, thank you for coming. And everybody, thank you for joining us online today. Sweet.